Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Hey there, Mother Clucker. Hey there, WT. How's everything in Tennessee and in Wisconsin tonight? Hopefully everybody can hear me. If you guys can hear me okay, let me know there in the chat. I'm always paranoid that I can't, that you guys can't hear me after that one incident. Talk a little bit about some of the stuff I did here in the last few days. Hope you guys enjoyed the hope you guys enjoyed the deer video that I did here. That was just one of those things. I was doing some late night prepping and hit that deer about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I said, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity for me to show you guys how, I field dress, recover deer. And then today I went ahead and I put another video together showing how I basically butcher the deer and take the different sections out, what to do with that stuff. So that'll be coming up tomorrow. Hey, Melissa, how you doing? Hey, Dana, Captain Bart, Karen, Sea Farmer, Old Spice, Mid-State, Hudson Valley. Hudson Valley and myself are going to be on Prepper Now's channel at 8 o'clock tonight as well when I'm done with this one. 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 for you folks there in Central. Monkey Food Garden, how you doing? Soggy in Southeast Louisiana. It is finally being fall here in Michigan. We have had some cool weathers. Hey, Bob C., Ira Allen, and the Crazy Mountain People. That actually sounds like a bluegrass band. I would probably come to your concert if you guys had a bluegrass concert. I would come to that for sure. Sherry Hicks, just order any replacement parts before my Glock before people panic. Yeah, I already got, kind of the stuff that I need. My Glock 19 is basically brand new, and my 19, I've already got spare springs and stuff here for that. And, I'm good for right now. But yes, anybody that needs anything with Glock discontinued all their pistols and they're revamping it to a new model to get out from underneath the lawsuits from those Glock switches. And that's, I can't believe they're dropping their entire line. But you know what, you see that a lot. The old man died here a year or two ago, and now, the company is all flustered. It's never the same when the old man starts it. Now, maybe if a kid takes over that's really conscientious, you maybe have two generations in a good company. Then after that, when the businessmen get in, then it goes to shit usually. So that's my take on that. But yeah, if you need any Glock parts, recoil spring is probably the main one. Recoil springs are the part that wears out a semi-automatic handguns usually the most. So if there's one spare part you have for a semi-auto handgun, it's going to be the recoil spring. That's the one you should keep on hand. Lady Luger, Pamela Porter, Kate, hello from Michigan. I'm all good with Glocks, Old Spice. Good. Tammy Brennan, how you doing? Aldi's and Myers were crowded today, as it was on Friday night before I hit that deer. It was the same thing. Hey there, Sunset. How you doing? Got some fall colors there in mid-state New York? Hey, Mary Gallagher, one of my good friends. She's on one of the groups that I'm on, and she is particularly good at hunting down food recalls, and she always gives us notice when there's ever any food recalls. Appreciate all you guys spending a little time here with me tonight. Couple of things. The trolls were out hot and heavy this week in particular. I did the spice video, and I did that video late at night after I had worked and stuff all day, and I maybe rambled a little bit at the beginning. But when I ramble in my videos, it's usually, I'm going to tell you why. It's because I don't have a script. I never have a script. I just go off the top of my head, and I want to make sure that I give you guys all the information that's in my mind, and sometimes that takes me a little bit to articulate all that. So if I'm a little bit longer and talkative, that's why, because I want you guys to have all the information so you guys can take that information and do what you need to do with it. But I had a couple of people say, oh, you talk too much, you just get to the point, and nothing pisses me off more than that. So they all got flight 19. And then I had another one that I'm going to bring up here. Cody Johnson, how's things in Iowa? The deer hunting must be going really good in Iowa right now. Iowa's a heck of a good deer hunting state. I know a lot of people that go out there. Sherry Hicks, Freedom Nugget, how you doing? Um, the other one, my little, my truck gun video, I kind of showed how I carry my truck gun and whatever. And I got a whole bunch of comments that said, "Oh, well, that's a free gun right there because somebody's going to steal it." And I think they missed the point of that entire video by running their mouths. You can have your stuff stolen out of your house. In fact, most guns get stole out of people's homes when they're not there. Even if you have them in a safe, they'll rip the safe right out of your wall and they'll take the whole thing out. So, me carrying a rifle in this day and age anymore, the way things are, especially where I work a mile from my house, and there isn't hardly a time throughout the day when I don't have visual contact of my vehicle. I think they're just kind of running their mouths and they're too afraid to carry a gun themselves. Oh, I'm afraid, I'm scared. I'm not going to take the necessary equipment I need to protect myself because I know off-duty police that roll with a lot more um, items than I do. And I've had off-duty police around here tell me the same thing. It's not dumb to carry something more than just a handgun with you in this day and age when you're out and about. And of course, it depends on the legalities of where you're going and stuff too. I'm not going to take my truck gun to downtown Chicago because I'm not going to downtown Chicago. And that's kind of how I look at that. But I thought those comments were particularly ignorant, and I wanted to share them with you guys. Tammy Brennan, I definitely enjoyed your spice video. Yeah, that was one that I needed to do a while. Sherry Hicks, I think you do very well for not having a script. Yeah, I don't really script anything. About the only things I've ever scripted, when I usually write a few notes and stuff down when I do my like my scenario videos, because that's more like make believe. But when it's real life stuff, I just go off the top of my head because if I was having a conversation with you guys in person, I would be telling you what would be coming to my mind right then and there. I wouldn't be reading off a script. I'd be having a conversation with you guys. And that's how I want my channel to be. Like, we're all sitting down and having coffee together and discussing, what we've been doing as far as prepping and old time stuff, basically like when mom went over to the neighbors, when mom went over to Finky's, and when mom went over to Mary's house. And, mom went over to Ernie's and a few of the other people that my mother knew. They sat around and they had a conversation. They didn't have a script. So I want my channel to be the same way. Freedom Nugget, I carry an AR and 5 mags in my truck. It's about right. I think I got 6 between my chest rig and spare one in my pack. And then, I have a couple in my gun case as well. Deb Smith, hello, Mr. and Mrs. MR. Everyone stocked up on supplies before November 1st. Definitely. No, I'm afraid that this EBT thing, unless this thing gets straightened around, this is going to be very problematic. Anonymous, I ramble in my videos as well. Well, when I'm rambling, I'm trying to articulate stuff. So, there's usually some type of wisdom nugget mixed in with that rambling as well. So that's how she goes. Scottish Prepper, how are things across the pond today? So one of these times, one of these things, like, this time it's the EBT cards going out. One of these times, one of these crazy things that's happening because of what's going on in the world is going to turn into an SHTF. I don't know how many times we're going to luck out as a society. One of these times something is going to go sideways. Back in 2017, if I would have said, hey, you know what, I think there's going to be some type of global supply chain shutdown because of some, weird thing that came out of China. You know what I'm going to get told? I told you're nuts, man. That ain't never going to happen. And then poof, it happened. Like I said, statistically, eventually something is going to happen like this. And because these incidents are happening more and more and more often, there's no better time to prep than there is right now. We're so dependent on technology. We are so dependent on these systems. We need to have redundancies for all these systems. Scottish Prepper, thank you very much. Same shit, different day, buddy. Yeah, that's like it is here too in Michigan. What do I got here? Hudson Valley, write down questions or topics. I did write a bug out bag class. Oh, that's cool. I guess I didn't know you did have a bug out bag class there, Hudson. But yes, thank you very much, Scottish. I appreciate you very much, sir. And I appreciate everybody being here. I get a certain amount of satisfaction and enjoyment that good solid information to help people is getting out on this channel, and that's my whole point. Lady Luger, I remember back in the 60s, guys would drive their pickup trucks to school with shotguns in their. I did that in the late 1980s and 90s. We'd go duck hunting or something after after school. We had a shotgun in our cars and a couple boxes of shells. Nobody ever said anything. And then finally toward the end, they said, well, if you're going hunting after school, just we don't want the shotguns out in we don't want you to leave the shotguns out in your car. We want you to bring them in and leave them at the school office. And then when you guys are ready to go out hunting at the end of the day, come by and pick up your shotgun and your shells. And that was just something that, the principal at that time wanted us to do. So, we did it. We didn't think anything of it. I remember taking guns into metal shop and mounting scopes on them in school. And it was never a problem. It's never a problem. That's because society has changed so much now. There's so much crazy stuff going on. That's why those things are sort of, it's never going to go back to the way it was when, back in the 70s and 80s when I was in school. City Prepper 016. Can you imagine an EBT cut off and then the power grid? Oh, that would be insane. I think just the EBT thing has got everybody on these, these short, like, what are they, TikTok posts and stuff, running their mouths where I'm just going to take this and I'm going to take that, and Walmart's going to close and they're just going to sell stuff. I haven't got any confirmation on that. I still know a lot of people that work for Walmart, and I haven't gotten a confirmation on that yet that Walmart's going to close and only sell stuff with online pickup. If I would happen to get a confirmation on that one way or another, I'll definitely throw a short or something up in my community section, letting you guys know what's going on with that. But I haven't. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I haven't heard any confirmation on that yet. Does the president have the power to restore EBT? You know what? In this day and age anymore, I don't know who has the power to do what. All they do is fight, and well, like the old saying goes, the only thing that loses when elephants fight is the grass they're standing on. Well, we're the grass they're standing on. They could give a shit less about us. I don't care what political party they are. None of them give a shit about us, and that's why you need to have, grow your garden, put up your own food, find ways to support yourself outside of the system. That's basically how I look at it. I got a photograph I stole from a meme years ago, and it says that growing your own garden is one of the most defiant acts that you can do. And that's how I look at that, because you're growing your own food. You're outside of the system. Nobody can control that but you. You want a reason to garden? There you go. There's a reason to garden. And you get the vegetables and the fruit along with it too. So it's a pretty good win-win situation for everybody. Hey there, Tom M. How you doing? Tom is another good friend here in Michigan, one of my longtime subscribers. Mother Clucker cooked a dinner using 100% ingredients from my preps. Well, I did mostly tonight. We had the venison. I made venison fajitas, and then I had tomatoes, onions, and peppers out of the garden that I sliced thin, sauteed them a little bit with some garlic out of the garden and just a little bit of salt and pepper on that. And I put Montreal steak seasoning on the venison chops. I cooked them to about medium, sliced them. Venison, you don't want to cook all the way well done because it gets tough then. I cooked it to about medium, so it was just a real thin line of pink in that. And then we had that with tortillas. And then the puppies did really good today too. I took some canned vegetables, some canned carrots. I took the heart and the liver out of that deer. I simmered that all afternoon. I sliced it up really fine. I did some cooked rice. So I mixed the vegetables, the cooked rice, though that simmered organ meat that was cut up fine, and I mixed that together. So the puppies got a A1 meal tonight for them as well. And our dogs are basically alarm systems. That's how we look at them. They're members of the family. We treat them like any other pets, but the pets that we have, the couple cats that we have, and the couple dogs that we have, the dogs are alarm systems, and the cats are rodent control. Because you know what? If something goes down, I'm going to be storing a certain amount of grain here. I'm going to have, I already do have a certain amount of grain here, but I have stuff like corn and sunflower seeds and wheat, oats. I have that kind of stuff here to use for different things. And I want some type of, anti-rodent device. And there's nothing better than having a good indoor-outdoor cat. You let the cat out for about half the day and you let him in half the day. So he's got a little rest and refuge where he can be safe and catch a little cat nap or whatever. But then when he wants to go out in the evening and the morning, you let him out and you let him do his thing. You would not be surprised how many mice they bring to the back doorstep. And, I'm a firm believer in having them. And the same thing, the dogs will always have better hearing than what we do. All right, let's checking out the thing here. Oh, Scottish Prepper, thank you, my friend. Like I said, I'm just hoping that the stuff that I ramble on about, like that one guy said, that I talk too much. So if I talk too much, I'm hoping that what I'm talking about helps everybody. Venison fajitas, Hudson. Yep, they're excellent. She floats to the top and it looks like the same shit. The only one that you can depend on is your training, your preps, your family, your friend, your mindset. And that's very true. What Scottish said there, your mindset has a lot to do with it. You can have the tools, you can have the gadgets, you can have all that stuff. But if you don't have that mindset to use that, just like me hitting that deer on Friday night, I could have just kept driving and not done anything with that. But I'm like, you know what? That deer hit pretty hard. I'm thinking it's probably screwed up. I'm going to go back and check. Went back. Sure enough, it broke its neck and it was dead. So, that was, and legally, that was my deer then at that point. I just had to go through the steps to, take that guy and get it field dressed and stuff. So I went through the legalese and, it was late at night. I called, Mother Refugee, told her what happened. She went with me. I grabbed the stuff out of my pack. I grabbed my paracord, grabbed my knife and stuff. Came home, picked her up. She grabbed her headlamp out of her get home bag. She had, an extra charging battery there so she could keep her phone charged and my phone charged. I grabbed my machete and my mallet that I had in my truck. The only thing that I grabbed from the house was a roll of plastic and a gambrel. And I could have survived without that too, but it just makes it a little bit easier. And I grabbed the dish to put the heart and the liver in. And, then we went to work and it was probably 2 a.m. by the time my head hit the pillow. But you know what, we had that deer cleaned up, we had it skinned, it was cooling off, we had everything squared away, and I got 23 pounds of meat out of that today. We got 4 pounds of steaks, 4 pounds of chops, and I got like between 14 and 15 pounds of ground up on that. So that was a fair amount of meat. You'd figure at $4 or $5 a pound, that was pushing $100 worth of meat if you would have had to pay for that. So CV Farmer, another reason to have a garden is to save your money. And that's true. Save your money. And not only that, if you save your seeds, you're saving money for next year's garden. And that's how I look at that. Hello there, whatever prepper. Share the cook. I wish I could share the deer with all you guys. It was good stuff. It was good stuff. I cook for my puppies also. The last 4 big dogs. Yeah, and you know what? If you have a rice cooker, you could just put everything in that rice cooker with your liquid. Put your rice, like I put the rice, I put the cut up organ meat, and I put the vegetables in there, and I covered that with water, and I let that go right in the rice cooker, and I let it cool, and that's how I make it. That's how I make our homemade dog food there. During COVID, when shoplifting was at an all-time high, this is IRL and the Crazy Mountain people. Shoplifting was at an all-time high. State's attorney in our area said the stores could just raise their prices so everyone else could pay the difference of the items being stolen. Well, if that isn't shooting the hog because the hog witnessed the fox stealing the chicken, that's how I look at that. That's BS right there. Gnostic Nomad, how are you doing tonight? Dangerous freedom mindset is everything. Yeah, and I find that with a lot of stuff. If you got the right mindset to get the job done, you're going to get the job done one way or another. Your tools and all your gear and stuff, that's all supplemental. But if you have that right mindset, you're gonna figure out how to get that job done. Better than letting the meat go to the raccoon. And that's true, Gnostic Nomad. That deer would have just laid there. You would have got punky in a couple of days. The raccoon or the possums would have got into it. Coyotes probably would have got into it at night. Maybe a few turkey vultures would have got in there, turkey buzzards, and that would have just went to waste. And it was a young deer. It was a yearling button buck. There's nothing that's more tender than that. I mean, that's premium meat. Like I said in the field dressing video, a year-old deer like that, or an 8-month-old deer like that, that is going to be much better tasting meat than a 4-year-old buck. I shot a 4-year-old. In fact, where I got the antlers up here somewhere. I think they're the ones that are one of the sets that's hanging up back there. Anyway, he was 2.5 years old. He was a 2.5-year-old buck. He was a real thick antlered 6-point. And man, when I shot him that night, I shot him in the neck, so there was no meat that was wasted. And that deer stunk. I could smell that deer 30 yards away. He smelled terrible. And he tasted just like he smelled because he was there right at the height of rut. I'm not so big on, shooting those. I mean, it's nice to get a big buck once in a while, but if you want deer to eat, you're better off shooting a yearling. Seriously. Let's see here. Middle East Millie, have you spoken about who you call to ask for permission to take the deer? I never heard of this before. Well, in Michigan, I don't know if you're in Michigan or not, in the Michigan DNR, and in fact, it's the only thing that the Michigan DNR that does right, in my opinion. They have what's called a wildlife salvage permit. And what it is you go on the DNR's website and you fill out the information. You put your name, your address, your email address, and your driver's license number down and say, I've found a deer hit on the road, or whatever it is. It could be a turkey or whatever. They have multiple different animals there. There's just certain things that you can't take, stuff that's protected. There's a couple things you can't take, but like if you would hit a black bear up in the UP, it's the same thing. You could keep that. So you fill out all that information, and then it pulls up a little map like on Google Earth, and you drop a pin where you're picking the animal up at, and you submit that information, and they send you an email back, and that email is your electronic tag. So I just archive that email from that salvage permit, and that's your tag to take the deer. And then I went one step further. I called the non-emergency 911 line and said, hey, here's my name. I just wanted to let you know I hit a deer here, so I'm still reporting the accident so I don't get in trouble for that. And I filled out my salvage permit. I got an okay from the DNR. I'm going to take this deer and I'm going to leave now. And the lady at the dispatch, she said, okay, no problem. Your name's this. Good enough. We made a record to it that you reported the accident and everything is good and you're going to go take the deer. And I said, yep. And then that was it. I'm perfect. I'm 100% legal to take that deer and do whatever. And that's the other thing that it asks you what you're doing with the animal, like if you're going to taxidermy it or if you're going to use it for consumption. And that's what I put down, is we're going to use it for consumption. And that's what we did. And that's basically it. Millie there, that's how we do that. Road restaurants, that's actually a funny idea. Have a road restaurant, just serve whatever the roadkill of the du jour of the day is. Mistress Queen Bee, keep your turkey packs with other organ stuff, your giblet pack for ad for pup. Oh yeah, there's no sense in wasting that. And a lot of that stuff, a lot of that organ meat is actually good for dogs' joints. So if you got a breed of dog that has problems with like hip dysplasia and stuff, that organ meat is actually good for the dogs. I bet it was sure tender after being hit by the truck. Actually, Gnostic, the only thing that was injured on that deer was its neck. It broke its neck because it ran into the pickup box on the driver's side. And the rest of the deer, I stripped the hide off the deer. There was no injury on that deer whatsoever, except from about the middle of its neck up. That was it. So, that nothing could be a more perfect kill than that, really, because the deer basically died instantly and it absolutely ruined no meat whatsoever. Mother Clucker, I've been deer in both my front and backyard every day. I had some deer right out back here just before I started this live stream because we got an apple tree in our backyard. I'm sure you guys already know that because I've said that before. But I always leave a few apples on the ground that fall down. Those deer are out there eating those apples. Just talking about how you might not go hunting. Well, I haven't went bow hunting dangerous freedom because this knee's been so bad. I don't want to crawl up in a tree. I want to stay kind of on the ground. So I'll still probably go gun hunting a little bit. And then I use a muzzle loader for that. So, but bow hunting I haven't been this year. But you know what? Got a deer anyway. There's I guess more than one way to skin a buck, eh? The homeless are disappearing across America at a rapid rate. I have not heard that. JS, wonder what's going on with that. Randy, howdy, awesome deer video. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. Uh, let's see here. Share this live stream out. Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys sharing my live streams. You know, I like I said, I just do this to have a conversation with you guys a couple times a week. Michigan has a deer list too. We have to call the sheriff to get on the list. They have a call and you turn and there's a deer in your area. I didn't know about the sheriff list. I guess I heard about sheriff's list back in the day, but since the first time I heard of this salvage permit was in 2019, and it's the second time that I have actually did a road salvage like this. The one deer, the other deer, it was by my property. Somebody had hit it, and I just pulled up there, and the deer's laying there. So I got out and I looked. I could see a couple broken parts from a headlight, and the deer was still warm. And what had happened, they hit the back leg of the deer, and it broke the femur on the deer, and there's a large artery that runs underneath the spine, right where that femur was broken. I think that femur went up into the artery, punctured it, and the deer bled to death. And the deer was still warm. So I did the same thing, filled out the salvage permit, got my email. It said, "This is your tag." Cut it up, called Mother Refugee, and the kids say, "Hey, you know, bring bring a couple of dish pans out here so I can collect the heart and stuff out of this." And I went right to work. And by the time they got out to where we were at here, a couple of miles from where the woods is, I already had the insides out of it, and we loaded it up and took it home, skinned it out. It was a couple days before gun hunting. There was snow on the ground too. Professional hit, yeah, it kind of was. Lucky hit, baby. Road hunting, oh yeah, you can call that road hunting if you want, but you know what? Like I said, what I told another YouTuber, I said no bullets were harmed in the making of this video because didn't use any. If you go bow hunting or use a crossbow, check your string. Buddy had his crossbows are really, from the moment you start shooting a crossbow starts tearing itself apart because there's just so much power in that string. And with compound bows, they're still bad, but not as bad as crossbows. The big thing with bowstrings is you want to have some string wax there. You want, if you see any little fray on your bowstring or crossbow string, you want to wax that, and then that actually increases the longevity of your bowstring. Jody from Michigan, happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you. Scott Deasy, invest in any type of tools. It's a good thing, especially hand tools. Oh, yeah. In fact, I just had the tool that I invested in here this week. I've got myself another battery charger. Now I actually have 3 battery chargers. I have a trickle charger or a maintainer. I have my old battery charger, which is basically rusty as heck, and I've had to repair the wiring on it multiple times. So that one is getting to a point where I don't know how long that's going to last anymore. It still works, so I'm still going to go use it. But I basically bought one exactly like that one that I can plug it into the wall and still jump start vehicles with it. Plus, I have a faster charger. I have like a 10 amp charger on it compared to a 2 amp charge on that trickle charger. But that trickle charger maintainer is nice because if I want a battery maintained, I can take the battery out, or I can leave the battery in like 4-wheeler or whatever. I can hook the maintainer up to it, plug it in, and then there's a small amount of energy constantly going through that battery. And then that way that battery's not dead in the spring, which is entirely possible with those really small batteries that go into like lawnmowers or ATVs or any of that stuff. And I got a pretty good deal on it. It was right around $100. It was about $40 off from what the regular price was. So I figured I got a pretty good deal. So I jumped on that. Modern refugee out here redefining drive-bys. Very much so. Very much so. Cordless everything. Yeah, a lot of people are going to cordless. Zoltan the man, when I drive around the thumb of Michigan, amazes me how many damn deer there are. That's because there's so much agriculture. You know, they got they got a lot of food, and we haven't had a lot of harsh winters in the last 25 years. So the deer population, there are different diseases in the deer. In southern Michigan, there's that one where the deer go for water and they can't get enough water and they die. It's some kind of, no matter how much they drink, they like still die of dehydration. I don't remember what they call it. It came up from like Ohio and Indiana, and that has been killing a lot of deer in like southern Michigan, down like by Jackson, Kalamazoo and stuff. But we haven't had that up here yet. Thanks, Monkey Food Garden. I appreciate you sharing that link. Yeah, that's I got the recovery video where I recovered it, and then I got the field dressing video, which is a little bit gory. I got a warning on that because you're field dressing a deer. And then the other one I think I'm going to release tomorrow because I got all the editing done on that, and that's basically where the deer's hanging up. I show how to cut it up, what the different cuts are, and then I also talk a little bit on how to hang a deer up, what you can do for that, because sometimes if you're by yourself like I was, I had a lot of people say, hey, we're older, we don't know if we're strong enough to hang these deer and stuff. So I share a few ideas on how to get a deer hung up where you don't have to break your back doing it, and that'll be in the video I'll release tomorrow. Upstate New York, JS, seen a moose in upstate New York. We got moose in the Upper Peninsula, but I have never shot or hunted a moose, but I have definitely seen them in the wild. Michigan Silverback, thanks for being here. Michigan Silverback's got himself a channel too, so make sure you check him out, along with Dangerous Freedom and, of course, Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival. These are all good to go channels. Make sure you check these guys out as well. There's a few BS channels on YouTube, and there's a lot of AI channels on YouTube, but there's some really good folks on YouTube too that are sharing, their perspective of prepping and gear and, mindset and, where they think the world is going. And definitely swing by and check out these folks' channel, because they lay nuggets of wisdom down too. I'm not the only one that does that. Dangerous Freedom. That's why it's important to store sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, and natural iodine. Oh, yes. I got to share this too. Somebody put on that one video of mine. They said that deer that I hit, that was called a Himalayan deer, and Himalayan deer he's a Himalayan deer because I found him Himalayan laying here. So I got a chuckle out of that. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that should be on a T-shirt or something. But I have a lot of salt here, and too, for stuff like this deer, so I've got everything here. If I want to make summer sausage out of that deer, I want to smoke jerky, whatever, I've got everything here. I'm probably going to make some summer sausage with that deer right in the oven. And that's easy enough to do. I've done videos on that too. My video I did with beef, but you can certainly do any beef. Beef and venison are interchangeable. So any beef recipe you have, you can use venison as well. Support your local YouTube preppers. I do. I try to always watch. I got probably 40 channels that I follow pretty regularly, and I watch and try to support those folks with my views. Wasting deer disease, Lady Luger. Yeah, there's chronic wasting disease is one, but then there's another one. There's a new one, and then the one that we had around here was tuberculosis. There was a lot of tuberculosis, bovine tuberculosis, supposedly up in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. But we've had different alerts around here when different farms and stuff had, a cow that had tuberculosis. They got to report that to the DNR. Well, then the DNR freaks out and makes all kinds of recommendations to check your deer and all over. And I let them take a couple of deer heads a couple of times with the ones that I harvested to see if they had tuberculosis, and none of them ever did. So I don't really worry about that too much. Sub Dog, glad that you can make it, buddy. Sherry Hicks, love your summer sausage recipe. We do too, and it's easy. You can just make it in the oven. You don't have to have anything. You can certainly do it. You can, if you really want to do it old school, you can get some muslin from the fabric and craft store, and you can sew some muslin bags and then pack your summer sausage in that, and then hang it and smoke it in the muslin bags. That's how the old timers did it. The old women would sew the muslin bags, and then the men, they would pack that in and hang that in the smokehouse, and that's how they would smoke their summer sausage. Rip Curl, love you, buddy. I'm glad you're here. Rip Curl, he's a good moderator for a lot of different channels out there. Marfugel being one of them. Marfugel, I remember when I started watching him, he was one of the first, I guess, prepping news channels that I ever watched, because I watch 4 or 5 channels that are kind of prepper news ones. Marfugel is one. Dabu is another one. He's a kind of a prepping news channel, right along with like Roaming Prepper and Hudson Valley. They talk about news stuff too, and then of course Prepper Now. He's probably my main guy, Prepper Now, and then his Crisis Reporter, my sort of my favorite YouTube news channels. Uh, Yeah, Dangerous Freedom. Summer sausage is awesome. And summer sausage, if it's made the right way, there's a reason it's called summer sausage, because it doesn't need refrigeration. If you make it the right way, and that's why it's sausage that you had in the summertime, and it didn't have to be refrigerated. And that was very important to the old timers back in the day. There was a time when some of the old guys that I knew, they didn't have refrigeration. Refrigeration is one of our big luxuries that we take for granted now. Sunset, MR, were there so many animal diseases when your parents were alive? Well, tuberculosis was always around, because that's that bovine tuberculosis, that's just because cows are always, they don't let them roam. They're always in barns and close together. So then they spread disease, of course. And there was always a little bit of that bovine tuberculosis around. But like that chronic wasting disease and some of that other stuff, you didn't hear anything of that. There was a distemper that wild rabbits would get too. And then if there was a good hard freeze or a good hard frost, like about 20 degrees outside, any rabbit that was diseased, that would kill them. And that's why none of the old timers would hunt rabbits until it was cold outside and there was snow on the ground. Like, they didn't shoot and eat rabbits in the spring and the summer, not at all, because if those rabbits had any of those diseases, you couldn't tell. And then of course you didn't want to ingest that meat. That's why they always waited until after a good hard freeze to hunt rabbit. And that was one of the things. I still kind of follow that tradition today. I don't shoot a rabbit unless it's cold outside and it's wintertime. uh Wisconsin prepping, yes, Prepper Now is my morning guy. Mine too, kind of. Speaking of making summer sausage, does anyone have a recipe that minimizes the crappy preservatives? ENH 811. You have to put meat cure in summer sausage, and the reason you have to do that is when you cure that when you're smoking it or you're drying it in the oven, whatever, that's coming up to temperature, and when that's coming up to temperature, that's right in that perfect temperature range where any bacteria in the meat can breed and taint that meat. And when you put that meat cure in the meat, that actually stops that from happening. So when the temperature's coming up in that meat, and that meat's nice and warm, but it's not so warm that it's killing the bacteria and stuff that's in there, your meat cure is actually protecting that meat from getting infected, so to speak. And that's why you have to put meat cure and stuff into certain sausages and stuff that you make and that you smoke. But that is the reason for the meat cure and to have that in there. Rip Curl, right? Rip Curl. Next spring and summer, I hope to be settling back in the fun, informative content again. Cool. Candace, episodic hemorrhage disease, EHD in deer. Yeah, that's maybe the one where they have to drink. I appreciate you sharing that with me, Candace. I probably butchered that pronunciation on that, but yeah, check out Candace's comment there. I think that is the disease that they are talking about, where they go for water. MR, I'm talking about the wild animals. The thing with the bovine tuberculosis, because it's a bovine tuberculosis, it can spread into the deer. So it's kind of a crossover. So basically, the diseases that cross over into the wild population come from the domesticated livestock, basically. So that's where that comes from. But any other diseases, I never really heard of Mom and those guys talking about diseases. I remember when Mom said the first time that she seen a deer around here was after World War II. All the deer were a little bit further up north, but then they basically started to spread as land got cleared off, more farms, there was more brush, because white-tailed deer aren't animals of the deep forest. They're more like brush and where you have like agriculture and woods meat. That's the areas that deer like to roam in. Michigan silverback. I remember Dad always saying we had to wait to shoot rabbits until December. Yeah, and that's why. That's why, because that animal that they get. But yeah, Sunset. That's a lot of the diseases that go into the wild population come from domesticated animals. Uh, Rabbits and pheasants back in the day. I still love pheasants, and I like hunting pheasants too. That's fun. But I tell you what, that we certainly don't have the pheasants around here like we used to have. Oh, thanks for the nice words, MR. Oh, no problem, Rip. That's what I'm here for. Sub dog, we have a brain wasting disease in the moose, along with cadmium. Yeah, and moose, we don't have any moose around here now. About 500 years ago, there was actually elk around here in eastern Michigan, but that species of elk is actually it's extinct now, and the elk that we have in Michigan are actually elk that they brought in from the western states, and they took them up in the northern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan. But the reason they know that those eastern elk were here in the lower peninsula of Michigan is there's been a couple different people actually found elk skulls that were submerged in small lakes. They like were fishing and they snagged them, brought them up, and they did like carbon dating and stuff on them. It turned out that these elk were like 500, these elk skulls and antlers were like 500 years old, and that's how they found out that they were from this extinct species of elk. So at one time, Michigan was, it'd be cruel to go in a time machine, go back and see once what this area looked like back 500-600 years ago. I think I would be definitely shocked by how much wildlife and stuff there would be around. Rip Curl, I would be no problem, Rip. I'll see if I can't get you a wrench here when I get a chance. No, that's no problem at all. I appreciate you being here. Sunset, we have brain wasting disease in humans too. Yeah, that's very true. A lot of moose in upstate New York. Yeah, moose like swampy and wetter ground. That's the same place in the UP. There's a lot of swamps and stuff, and that's usually where you see the moose when you have a road going through there. You'll see them out in that kind of marshy land. There were no real numbers of whitetail in Ontario until the 1800s. It was all elk. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I remember Mom saying the first time she ever seen a whitetail around here, and she was fairly young. And all the old timers, they would go up to around Houghton Lake, which is about in the center of the lower peninsula of Michigan. That's where everybody would go to hunt deer. Let's see here. There you go, Rip. I think I got you saved there as a mod, but I'm a little new to all this stuff. But yeah, no problem. I know you're a qualified mod guy if I ever seen one. You're modding on all kinds of different videos. Wisconsin prepping. What about fox? I've had a lot of fox around me. Fox, fox used to be a good money maker for trapping, but other than that, I know mom always would. She never cared for having a fox around. If there was a fox out and about, they would definitely want those fox eliminated because they would get into the chickens, especially. I mean, some of the mom always liked bandy chickens because bandy chickens could fly up. They're not like a regular like a barred rock or something. Those smaller bandy chickens, they could fly just like birds. So if there was any predator around, they'd fly right up into the. There were times you come out, there'd be a bandy rooster sitting up in 25 feet up in the top of one of the pine trees because something was chasing it on the ground or whatever. So I thought that That was always pretty neat. And mom just swore by bandy chickens. They were tough, they were hardy, they weren't afraid to fight. Like if something like a bigger chicken or something would try to pick a fight with a bandy rooster would kick its ass in a heartbeat. And I always just thought that they were just a more hardy bird. And if I would ever get chickens here, I would look seriously at probably getting some variety of bandy chickens. Uh, Coming out of New Brunswick a few years ago, came across a moose as we drove out. I think his, I think it hit a car and where we were passing. Yeah, um, the road that goes between Marquette and L'Anse and Baraga in the Upper Peninsula, that goes right through prime moose territory, and it's US 41 for part of the way, but then it's like 28, and then it turns into 41, and some of the way it's both. Almost, I follow a bunch of different news sources and stuff in the Upper Peninsula, and almost every year there's a couple of moose that go through people's windshields on that stretch of road. And when you hit a moose, a couple times people were very severely injured. And I think one person was even killed once because the moose came through the windshield. They're just huge animals. Uh, but yeah, the whole reason I was out Friday night is I went through and had a little bit of a shopping list and say, for the next few weeks, I'm going to be laid up with my knee. I'm not going to want to be going shopping and stuff. So I made, lists of stuff that I want to make. I want to make chicken chili. I want to make regular chicken chili. I want to do some things like chicken quesadillas and stuff. I want to make a couple Cajun dishes. So I wanted to make sure I had some Cajun sausage. Of course, we always got stuff like, powdered milk and stuff like that here. I got, I don't really need to buy milk for anything, but I got a small amount of milk. We got bunches of potatoes here from what we grew in our own garden. So we got all that stuff, and then went and got, of course, our daughter moved back home here. So we got a few things like, detergent, paper plates and stuff. Don't underestimate paper plates, because if there's some type of SHTF, you don't want to waste the water that you have washing dishes. You want to save that water for drinking and cooking and, your own personal hygiene. That's why I prefer to get large quantities of paper plates. And then two, that stuff can just be burned in the wood stove, and we can incinerate that. Then we don't have any garbage and stuff left over. So yeah, it costs a little bit of money, but paper plates is one of the things that I try to keep quite a bit here on. So, I was just going through. I want to make, a couple of beef roasts and stuff, and I just went ahead and said, I'm going to start stocking up on this stuff. I am going to probably go later this week again, and I want to have enough stuff here. So I basically have got about 3 weeks worth of the 3 weeks that I'm going to be off work. I want to have about 3 weeks worth of meal planning all squared away here. So I have everything here. Lasagna is another one. Of course, my wife can't have the gluten, so there's a certain kind of gluten-free lasagna noodles that I get. I wanted to get all that stuff, so I have all of that here. So when I'm off and laid up, I can go ahead and I can make those meals and not have to worry about running to the store for any of that. So it's for my medical stuff that's going on, but also because of this EBT stuff too. So how does that deer taste? Oh, that deer was awesome. Tasted, I sliced it across the bias, so it was already tender meat to begin with, and it had a little bit of pink in it, so it wasn't tough. And I put that Montreal steak seasoning on it about 2 hours before I put it out on the grill. Got the grill up to 500 degrees and seared it, so it had just a little bit of crust on the outside of it. And then when I put those sautéed vegetables on top, they absorbed, all that flavor from those sautéed vegetables. There isn't a better way to have venison. It was just excellent. I usually make soup and stews, all about the alternative. I usually make soups and stews around this time and freeze most of it and have meals on the ready. Good idea. I like to keep basic ingredients and then stuff that I can combine quickly and make meals. I don't usually do like canned soups and stews and stuff, although I know a lot of people that do. I like just having the ingredients here, and then I can just put everything together quickly and make it. That's typically how I do it. My wife loves paper plates. Yeah, like I said, paper plates or something. If there's a power outage or something, or if there's some kind of problem with water, you can just eat, you can throw them out, and you don't have to, you might need a little bit of water to wash a few utensils or something like that, but you could keep that down to a minimum. Canning beef this week for my dogs since we remove them. Homemade, mostly meat. Their health and yeah, homemade dog food is so much better for dogs, and they like eating it. Dogs get tired of eating that junk dog food all the time. I don't like feeding the dogs that all the time. It's not good for them. I don't care what they put on the outside package. Someone gave me an Amazon gift card and I picked up a Chinese shoe patch or sewing machine. That sounds like a good thing. Good thing to have around. Treadle sewing machine that does zigzag stitches. We had an old guy here in town. He had like a hobby shop, but then he had a leather shop in the back, and he had the really large sewing machines where he could sew like stiff leather and stuff. So if you had like a heavy work coat where the zipper was ripped or whatever, you could take that in. He'd cut that zipper out of there and he would put in like a heavy duty zipper on the canvas. He would put that in there and he would restitch that. I know because I had some leather that I had made a knife back when I was, I don't know, maybe like 16, 17 years old. And I wanted a sheath for that knife. And I took in some leather that I had, and he actually made me a sheath and stitched it together and put rivets at the corner. I still got it here. It doesn't look very good because it's basically rectangular, and he just slapped a piece on the front like that, and then he stitched it around, put a rivet in the four corners, and then he stitched a little band on where you could snap the top. So it's not very ergonomic or anything, but he sewed all that. And I often wondered what happened to those that old leather sewing machines and stuff that he had in there, because they were ungodly big things, big flywheels on them and stuff. And he used these really large needles, and the thread that they stitched that leather with, that was almost like string. It was so thick, but it was pretty good. Like I said, that's something like that would be cool to have around. Modern refugee, what are you having done to your knee? Well, it's a scope, what they call a scope. My meniscus is shot. It's tore all up, and the rest of the cartilage in my knee has been torn for probably 10 years already. And because there's no blood flow in that, they said that is never, ever going to heal or get better. Well, now arthritis is starting to come in there. So they're going to go scrape the arthritis out, and they're going to cut all that torn cartilage out. And then hopefully when it heals, I could get some of the because I'm having problems ambulating, bending down or getting down to do anything. If I'm standing, I'm okay. Or if I'm walking straight, I'm okay. But if I have to bend, stoop, get down, and you guys probably don't need to know this, but when I'm on the toilet and I have to literally push myself back up because I can't bend my knee just doesn't work. And then a couple of times I actually fell. The one time I fell right in front of my boss at work. He told me to go do something. I went, turned around, started to walk away to go do that, and my knee just gave out, and I just tumbled. I did a little tumble and jumped back up. He's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was just my knee gave out." And I'm hoping that this is going to take care of some of that, where I don't have quite the problems. But anyway, that's what the deal is on that. Uh, I like to can ingredients too. This week I canned French onion soup. That sounds good. Those Chinese machines will sew some leather too. Well, that would definitely be good to have. Simple meals for us. I know somebody put in here that they like the canned soup. I actually like some of the dried soup mixes, like Shore Lunch is one, Bear Creek is another one, and then there's another one around here that we get. Can't think of the name of it though, but you can get stuff like the broccoli cheddar soup, and you can get potato soup and stuff. Those are actually really good to have for a quick meal, and then I doctor them up a little bit, like the potato soup and stuff. I'll put a little extra dry milk in that instead of just water, and I'll kind of enrich that a little bit, add some crumbled up bacon or some green onions or something like that into that, or some chives that I still got growing out beside the house here. Throw that in, and then that gives it a little bit more flavor. But I've had a lot of good luck using some of the dried soup mixes. Modern Refugee, my dad had both knees replaced. He had bone on bone. Yeah. And CV Farmer, my one knee, I still got a little bit of a gap yet in between my knee joint, but the other one is damn near bone on bone. So I'm hoping this is going to cure some of this stuff. And that's why I gained weight, man. When I did that deer video, I could see my gut sticking out. And I used to always walk a couple of miles every night on top of, but this year I just can't walk. When I get home from work, I can't walk for no 2-3 miles like I did, the last couple of years. And what have I done? I've gained 25 pounds, and I'd like to get rid of this 25 pounds, but I can't do nothing until this knee gets fixed. So that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, you guys need to know about my health problems, but it's part of getting older, I guess. But yeah, people say you got to stay fit if you're a prepper. Well, sometimes staying fit's a lot harder than it sounds. But Bear Creek is good, but it's high in salt. I think all those dried soup mixes are probably got way too much salt in them, and unfortunately, that's just kind of the way they make them. I wish they wouldn't put that much salt in them, but they are quick and easy to make. CV Farmer, Modern Refugee, hope and pray everything goes well. I'm sure I'll be all right. Like I said, it's going to be interesting because that's after the 1st of November. I don't plan on going in any grocery stores for a week or so after that, and I'm supposed to find out this week exactly what time it is because they didn't give me a time, even though I had my entire like pre, what kind of medication you take and what other problems you got. I already had that phone call. And in fact, I had another gal I know. She works for the medical place, and they gave me this. And what this is this is a knee brace, and these blue things right here, they are actually, you put them in the freezer and you freeze them, and then the tube there, it's like a blood pressure cuff. You put the frozen thing into the knee brace, you wrap the knee brace around your knee, and then you take that bulb pump and you pump that up to support your knee. And they said that I needed to take that with me the day of the surgery because they fitted it to me. And they said that has to go on to hold everything in place after they do the surgery. So I got one more medical thing here to add to my pretty extensive first aid kit already. Randy T, speaking of leather, my grandfather went in making needs foot oil. Needs foot oil is one of the best things you can put on leather. It smelled so bad, but my grandmother made him throw it away. That's funny. Get a stationary bike. I wish I could ride a bike, but I never cared for riding bike because it always bothered my knees and my hips, and now I can see why. Had to have both my knees replaced. Ira Allen, 24 years ago, was borderline being in a wheelchair. Best thing that ever happened. I hope. I don't. I don't mind having a little limp, but it's just been bad this year. Hey, Mother Refugee. Glad you could stop by. Mother Refugee was out visiting Mom. We had to do that too. We took Mom to a nice local benefit here yesterday evening. She had a really good time. And again, that's something I put in a post. If you want to meet people in your area and you want to find like-minded people and good-hearted people to have in a group in case something does happen, hit the fundraisers. If you have the churches having fundraisers, the firefighters, or this particular one, somebody had some medical problems and they had a fundraiser for her. Just go to those places, spend a couple of dollars on the fundraiser. Usually it's always got a meal involved with it. Get a good meal, talk to people. That's kind of how you network and you learn people in your area. And then of course, when you're going to these fundraisers, people know, hey, he's coming to fundraisers. He is concerned about other people and stuff. And that's kind of how you build that community bond, so to speak. At least it has been for me. Matt L, listen to the physical therapist. Yeah, and it was the same way when I had my bowel surgery. I followed the doctor's instructions, and I think that probably helped me out more than anything else. Mistress Queen Bee made it too. Horrible smell. I have to keep that in mind. Horrible smell to make needs foot oil. Abdullah, hope you have a speedy recovery. Thanks. I appreciate it, sir. Essential. Good evening to all. Yeah, guys, it's getting on about an hour here, so I am going to get ready to close this down here in a couple of minutes and take a little bit of a break. And then 8, we're going to have a chat over there on Prepper Now's channel with everybody. Talk about all the crazy stuff that's been going on here in the last few weeks. There's never no end of things to talk about in this day and age anymore. That's why it's a good idea to always prep it. You know, everybody that's listening to me here on here tonight, make sure that you got your pantry squared away here this week. You know what? Maybe nothing's going to come out of this. Maybe they're going to have some solution at the very end, but I don't want anybody that watches my channel to get into any problems because they're getting their groceries stole when they go to the grocery store or they go to the market. Get your stuff squared away for a few weeks and kind of lay low, stay out of them big box stores, because I think that's going to be the place where there's going to be a lot more issues, because I can see like small grocery stores in towns here where I live. If you aren't around here and you think, if people think that they're going to come out here to the country to our small grocery stores and they're going to loot them like they do the big stores in the city, I think they're going to be in for a big surprise, because the small stores around here, you know, we can just say, hey, you know what? We don't know you. You're not welcome in our store, and right to refuse service. That's a thing too. And you know what? That's just the way that it is. So I could see something like that happening as well. Matt L, thanks for all your videos, watching for the past 2 years. I appreciate that, Matt. I appreciate you being here on the live stream too. Thank you, Sub Dog. I appreciate you having you here. Monkey Food Garden, whatever, Prepper. Tuck, Essential, Tom M. Rhonda, Mary Gallagher, CV Farmer, Rhonda, Mistress Queen Bee. I appreciate all you guys. Old Spice. Appreciate you all being here. Anyway, this is Modern Refugee. I appreciate you guys always watching my videos, and I hope you always get something out of them that's beneficial for your preparedness. But anyway, you guys have a good one.